While we're waiting, just a couple of housekeeping things for you. So as we go through, I'm sure there'll be questions that come up, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. No guarantees that we'll get to every single one, but you can use the Q&A function in Zoom. You can also use the chat feature as well if you want to throw questions in there. And so hopefully that helps kind of, I guess, direct you where to go. And it looks like Nick has joined us. So thank you, Nick. And now
Hey, team.
Hey. And now our crew is rounded out. So we have two people on our panel that are a little bit affected by this. Liam is stuck in Austin right now. He was supposed to fly back here to Seattle a few days ago, and so he's doing this from a hotel room. So you can see his nice little hotel room art on the back. But he does have power and water, so that's good. And then Nick is, I think, had to abandon and go a little bit out of Portland to get away from some of that stuff as well. So thank you both for joining us today with all the kind of just craziness that's been going on over the last week or so.
Not at all, Andrew. All for the love of Google Analytics.
Yeah, Google.
That's right.
Keep you away. All right, so it looks like we have a decent amount of people in the room here. So, and so we, yeah, like I said before, we had over 250 people join this webinar, and so we a few months ago we had to up our Zoom webinar subscription, and the next level is 500 people. So if we can get 500, then we can go to the next level, which would be a good day. So. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about Google Analytics 4, and this is our Applying Your Analytics webinar. Again, a little housekeeping as people have still continue to join is use the Q&A and the chat function if you want to put questions in. We'll do our best to answer all of them. And yeah, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you that haven't been on any of our previous webinars, don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Cederland. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at ConversionLogix, and we have a few people joining me today. We have Colin Turner, who is a marketing analyst on our team. He is one of the people that, he goes really, really deep into nitty-gritty details and zooms way out and gives us really good micro and macro analysis of what's happening in the market and in our campaigns, and always helping us to find new ways to improve. We also have Liam Keller, who is on our operations team. He does a lot of work with Google Analytics and setting up conversions and triggers to make sure that we're able to track everything that we need to optimize our campaigns. And then we also have Nick Danford, who is our agency development representative from Google. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. We've worked with Nick over the last couple of years to just continually improve and develop and build on all of the new solutions that Google's always coming out with, it seems like. And so, yeah, thank you all for joining us. So a little bit about us at ConversionLogix. We are a digital marketing agency as well as a software company. And so we, for the last 10 years, have focused on driving the best quality traffic to our clients' websites through Google Ads, Facebook ads, display, email. We've also built our own lead generation SaaS platform called the Conversion Cloud. And so what that is it's a suite of tools. One is a appointment scheduler called Schedule Genie. We have a concession manager, allows you to display different offers to your prospects, a texting tool. And then there's also an attribution and analytics side of that called Clarity. It helps you understand where leads are coming from and how best to change your media mix to drive the best results. And so we are a premier Google partner, a Facebook marketing partner. We've also been recognized as part of the Fast 50, the 50 fastest growing companies in the Austin area. And we've also been a member of the Inc. 5000 for the last few years. So we're proud of those, I guess, nominations. And yeah, so thank you for joining us. Before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to put up a poll, and we're going to just want to get a sense of your Google Analytics knowledge. And so, and then while you're filling that out, I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering today. So the first piece we're going to look at is the analytics overview. Liam is going to talk to us a little bit about Google Analytics and just some of the overview of how to set up GA4 concurrently with Universal Analytics. And then Colin's going to take us through some of the new engagement metrics. This is probably the biggest change that most of us that have been familiar with GA for a long, long time. There's some things changing. One of them is bounce rate is no more, which is a little bit shocking, but I think there's good things replacing it. Next, we're going to talk about the new features and tools in Google Analytics 4 that you can use. And then last, Nick is going to talk a little bit about what the future holds, why analytics is so important, kind of moving into the future and for your business objectives. And so just looking at the poll, looks like we have about 37% of you would say that you're a beginner in analytics. So hopefully this helps you kind of understand the lay of the land a little bit better. We have 60% of you say you're intermediate, which is, you understand the metrics and, I'm assuming go in on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And I think this will really help you compare apples to oranges because, yeah, like I said, there's some things that are changing and it's good to understand, what's good and what's bad when we're so used to relying on some of these other metrics like pages per session and bounce rate that no longer exist. And then it looks like we have 4% Ninja analytics experts in here. So that's great. Hopefully you get something out of the webinar as well. And then, all right. So hopefully you come away with this with a few things. One is understanding what's new in GA4, we want to help you create the right reporting setup for your site. And then last is we want to help you find, use, and interpret the new metrics, features, and tools that are available to you in Google Analytics 4. So with all of that preamble, why don't you go ahead, Liam, and talk to us a little bit about Google Analytics and some of the overview and understanding how UA and GA4 work together.
Perfect. Thank you for starting us off, Andrew. As Andrew said, my name is Liam, and I will be taking us through the analytics overview. So we'll start with how website tracking works and Google Analytics itself. So those of you who are new, Google Analytics is the marketing industry's most popular platform for tracking website behavior. At ConversionLogix, we utilize it all the time when it comes to optimizing our campaigns and reviewing how they're performing. One way we're able to do this is through UTM tags. UTM tags are links that we add to our marketing campaigns so we can track the source of the campaigns, as well as just to see how they're performing and view it within analytics. An additional component to analytics that allows us to review our traffic is the conversion tracking. So in Google Analytics, we can set up events which allow us to define what a conversion is on the website and monitor how successful the campaigns are at driving conversions. And a conversion might be something such as a contact form or a call from a website. So we're going to go ahead and do a comparison between GA4 and Universal Analytics. So one of the major differences is GA4 is going to focus on user data rather than pages or sessions like Universal Analytics. It utilizes more machine learning and touch points to try to paint a picture using individual user data, even when aggregated together. Kind of like Andrew was saying, we've gotten rid of bounce rate and we've replaced it with things that kind of focus on user engagement and how they're interacting with the website. And at the core of that is machine learning that's helping us do that within GA4. One of the biggest changes is now GA4 is able to use multi-touch attribution more, which in the apartment industry could mean a user goes and visits the website and then comes back later and has another positive session on there. And it's able to go ahead and cover that a little better than Universal Analytics was able to. An additional change is with the engagement metrics. Whereas Universal Analytics focused on pages and sessions, GA4 now focuses on how users are engaging with the page. And we have 4 new metrics, which Colin will go over later on. In addition to GA4 is also the event creation. Before we had to manually set up events in Universal Analytics, while we still have the capability to do that in GA4, GA4 with machine learning helps us set up to 500 events that allows us to understand that user engagement even more. And then another large change is the report building tools. This allows us to go ahead and analyze our traffic and understand it even more in a much more robust way than Universal Analytics. An important part when transitioning to this GA4 and Universal Analytics is that we want to have both on the website. Right now, GA4 does not yet support an API connection between other reporting platforms. This means you won't get GA4 data in your existing reporting platforms for a while. It's not publicly released yet. So if you want to continue getting that within platforms such as TAP, we need to make sure that Universal Analytics is on site if you do choose to move forward with GA4 as well. It also will allow you to look back at your Universal Analytics historical data. And if you're running both, you have that many more metrics to look at, but we want to make sure both of those are on the website. So what's nice is if you are running both, you're able to link both of those. So the settings from your Universal Analytics account will get pulled into your GA4 account, including events. So it makes it so it's an easier transition, but also makes it that much more important that you have both on your website. How to get started with GA4 if you already have a Universal Analytics account is to go ahead and look within admin at the new setup assistant. This will help guide you through the process of getting started with GA4. And the screen looks like this that helps you just kind of get that process going and making sure that your accounts are linking and pulling in the data properly. Now, if you're entirely new to analytics and you're setting up a new account, it's important to note that GA4 is now the default for setting up analytics, and it will not set you up with the Universal Analytics account unless you go ahead and you take that extra step to do so. So when you're on the second step, you'll want to go ahead and make sure that you are also clicking in the advanced options to create a Universal Analytics account. That way you are running both on your website, which is Google's best practice and allows us to go ahead and have that API connection for reporting platforms. After you go ahead and set up those accounts, you'll want to make sure that you add the tracking code to your website, and then it may take up to 24 hours for the data to start streaming in, but it will pull in the data for both your GA4 account and Universal Analytics account.
Thanks, Liam. So Colin, now why don't you tell us a little about some of the metrics that we can expect? And I think this is probably the biggest change for those of you that said that you were kind of intermediate or advanced. There's some big changes here.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So there's going to be some new metrics available, as well as some metrics that you might be familiar with in Universal Analytics that have since been either de-emphasized or totally deprecated. So on the right side are 4 metrics in Universal Analytics that we want to provide a counterpart to you in GA4. So as you can see, the session will still be around in GA4. It's an important part of Google Analytics, especially with calculating other metrics, but it's kind of been de-emphasized, and GA4 is kind of leaning towards the engaged session instead. Pages per session is completely deprecated. If you need to find page views, so if you're wondering how many views your homepage got versus your floor plans page, that is still available. But instead, we could use something like engaged sessions per user. Average session duration is completely deprecated as well, although average engagement time is a very clear analog to it. Bounce rate, one of the most famous, Universal Analytic metrics, is also dead, unfortunately, but engagement rate provides a much clearer interpretation of traffic quality. So the engaged session. So the definition is the number of sessions that last longer than 10 seconds, had a conversion event, or had 2 or more screen or page views. So the impact is the transitions from sessions to engaged sessions gives marketers a better understanding of traffic quality. Better marketing should result in a larger uptick of engaged sessions rather than using marketing tactics to create a lot of sessions, even if the quality is poor. So at Conversion Logics, we always think about driving quality clicks instead of just clicks to the website. So as you can see, you can find engaged sessions under acquisition and traffic acquisition. So this page is kind of the bread and butter for marketers to come in and see how traffic is doing from different channels. So you can see engaged sessions from Conversion Logic's display traffic is about 700, while sessions is 828. So you can see we're driving a high quality of traffic, and that gives us, a little room to interpret the data. Engaged sessions per user. Definition is the number of engaged sessions divided by the number of users in a given time period. Impact is engaged sessions per user gives us a better understanding of how many times a user touches the website. So as Andrew and Liam both mentioned, to understand multi-touch attribution, you really have to focus on the user instead of the session. especially in an industry like multifamily housing that has a very long buying cycle. People are not going to do an impulse buy of an apartment. They're going to take months to research, the correct place for them to live. So it's important to understand how they're interacting with the website, engaging over multiple touches. As you can see, Google CPC, which is paid search in this table, is 0.85 engaged sessions per user. So as the quality increases, that number should increase towards 1. It can actually be over 1 engaged sessions per user if users are coming back to the website through that channel and having engagement. Average engagement time definition. Average engagement time measures the length of time an app was in the foreground or a website had focus in the browser. The impact of this is transitioning from average session duration to average engagement time helps eliminate the outliers such as quick bounces or people lingering with the website open but not actually engaging. This also helps reflect if the content on the website is something that users engage with or if it needs to be adjusted to engage their attention. So if you remember under Universal Analytics, a bounce was considered 0 time on site, no matter how long the user was actually on site. So you could imagine a situation where somebody clicks onto the website, they're kind of static there for 10 minutes even, but they might actually get relevant information. Maybe they Googled, where is so-and-so apartments? They clicked on to a map icon. They knew exactly where it was and they left. So in Universal Analytics, that would kind of be 0 time on site and look like poor quality traffic, when instead they actually, got the information they needed very quickly. So you can see under acquisition and traffic acquisition, the average engagement time per session. So Conversion Logic's display has 0 minutes, 43 seconds, and paid search 0 and 53 seconds. So on average, this engagement time is going to be a little less than session duration because of some of those outliers like 30-minute sessions. That's not as accurate anymore. And this will be, just a better way to kind of define engagement. I think it's also important to realize that websites these days in this industry are meant to be frictionless, and you want to get a user on and convert them very quickly. So this is not the New York Times where we'd want to see, 30 minutes time on site. We want to see, 1 to 2 minutes and around that area. Engagement rate. So the definition is engaged sessions divided by total sessions. So bounce rate gave too much weight to the negative extremes, while engagement rate focuses on what marketers want to see, the percentage of users that are interacting with the website. So as you can see, we've seen engagement rates be anywhere from 60 to 80%. When you kind of creep towards that 100% mark, you're getting really high quality traffic. I would consider 84% very, very high quality traffic, and almost every user is engaged somehow in the website. So the benefits of the new metrics. So better benchmarks, page views, and bounce rates are largely website dependent. These new engagement metrics will create better benchmarks across websites. It's easier to compare channel effectiveness. It will be easier to analyze different traffic sources and marketing channels across an array of communities. Clearer picture of engagement. Overall, it does help us understand the quality of traffic better. Before we viewed time on site, bounce rate, and page views as a way to divulge user engagement. The new metrics now help us do that without reading between the lines. Navigating new metrics. So how to establish internal benchmarks. We found that comparing and contrasting the metrics on a single property within a single channel, this will allow you to help develop a solid understanding of the new metrics and create benchmarks in reference to the older metrics. So in GA4, engaged sessions per user, the benchmark, 1 over +1 would be awesome. That'd be like, batting 400. Anything above like 0.85 would be a great metric. Average engagement time. expect it to be about 15% to 30% shorter than today's session duration. And for engagement rate, it should be anywhere in the 60 to 80% range. Above 80% would be very high quality traffic. Reporting limitations. So Liam mentioned this before, still waiting for API development. The first version of GA4 API has not been publicly released. So the impact is TapClicks and other reporting platforms cannot connect to GA4. You can only view GA4 data in the GA platform on a single account basis, which means no mass reporting utilizing GA4 metrics. I have been snooping around some marketing forums and people are testing the API. So that's a good sign. So hopefully when it gets released publicly, TapClicks and other reporting platforms can integrate it very quickly.
Great. Thanks, Colin, for that overview. And I have a couple of questions that have come in. Yes, there will be a recording. So if you want to go back and re-watch some of the differences between those metrics, as I'm sure we all do, yeah, we'll have a recording available after the fact. Liam, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the new tools and features that are coming out in GA4?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, and great job, Colin. So at the core of GA4 is machine learning. As data becomes more private, we need to figure out a way to fill in the gaps in a cookieless future, and machine learning is the answer to that problem. GA4 utilizes machine learning to a greater extent than universal analytics and helps understand the users better and any gaps we have without having cookies. In addition, machine learning also helps with things such as setting up the events or those new engagement metrics that Colin just went over. Things such as a slow scroll on a website, machine learning will pick up as someone slowly reading, and it will continue to understand how users interact with that website to provide you better and better data and continue to try to fill in the gaps as cookies get removed from what we use to collect data. This is an example of some of the auto-generated events. So as I mentioned before, in GA4, machine learning will pull in up to 500 events, and we can still manually create them, but it will continue to go ahead and help create these itself based off what it sees users are doing on the website. Some of the ones for the apartment industries I've even seen go as far as an application complete, but most of the ones I've seen so far have been really strong events and metrics that helping analyze how users are engaging. In addition, GA4 has created more robust audience insights. So in an EHO-friendly world, we have to go ahead and use these carefully, but audiences allow you to define a segment based on their demographics, purchases, acquisition channels, and overall activity. You can then see the size of your audiences and which segments are growing or shrinking over time. Some of the ways we can use this in an EHO-friendly way is just observing our growing segments, uncovering tactics with income bid adjustments. Audiences can be grouped by mobile versus desktop to gain a better understanding of which direction is actually converting more, or just seeing what time someone is interacting best with the website and getting a better understanding of how our audiences and demographics are converting on our websites. Which leads into the audience creation. So this is actually some events that were set up on a website. So you could create an audience that's based off people who actually reached an apply now step and see what demographics or what audiences fell within that event creation. So audiences allow us to just get a better look at this, and they didn't have as much of a robust audience creation in universal analytics as they now do in GA4. And now I'll be passing it back over to Colin for returning users.
Yeah, so we mentioned before that GA4 is really emphasizing the user over the session, and we totally agree with this. So GA4 has created a new section called retention. So now you can track how many users come back to your website and the retention rate of different marketing channels. So how to utilize this feature: create a baseline for your retention rate. Returning users often have a higher conversion rate, so it's important to track and nurture these users. So as you can see this page, you want to create a baseline for returning users versus new users. And then you can create campaigns like retargeting campaigns in either display or social. And you can see how that returning user rate changes and how the conversion rates change as a result. the comparison tool. So what's new? You can now create very specific segments from your website audience and compare engagement metrics. This tool allows you to analyze how different members of your user base are interacting with your website and use this to inform marketing decisions. So we have a little example here of a community that was in Memphis. And so what you can do is you can take all of the data from users that are currently in Memphis and how they've interacted with the website and compare that to a baseline of users from all over the country. What's really nice is when you apply this segment, the comparison tool will kind of follow you around as you browse analytics. So in this section, you could compare how each channel is interacting with your website segmented by the city Memphis. Analysis Hub. So there's new reporting templates inside of GA4 Analysis Hub are a range of reporting templates you can use to help you visualize acquisition, conversion, and user behavior data in the platform. What I will say is this is a pretty steep learning curve, this area. If you really want to do a deep dive and you are a ninja, if you responded in the poll, this is the place for you. But I think you should really have a good understanding of the metrics before you dive into this section.
Great. Thanks, Colin. So now kind of our last section here is we're going to turn it over to Nick and talk a little bit about, what does this mean and really how does this relate to sort of broader business objectives that, that we're all driving and striving to achieve. So Nick, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, team. So I'm going to present some insights from a study that Google commissioned with Forrester Consulting. So it's going to have, the insights are going to have more to do with analytics in general, but what I'm going to do after that is connect it with GA4 and kind of what you can expect to see inside of the platform. So hoping to kind of bring it home in a GA4 perspective. So Forrester Consulting, they conducted an online survey of 750 global decision makers, and they're responsible for analytics, media, and marketing business insights. And they wanted to evaluate the current use of analytics platforms and then check and see if there's any potential benefits for cross-platform analytics. So this is what we got. And just for timing here, because I know last year was a little bit crazy and a lot of things have changed. This was published in the middle of the pandemic, so it's taking into account some of the pandemic in the responses here. So the first insight, marketers, they're ranking. Where are we? Are we analytics and business results? Yes, here we are. Yep. So they're ranking analytics in the top 5 here of priorities over the next 12 months. And Google agrees. So if we enter from stage left, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome GA4. So Google's investing as well. And we want to invest in a durable, privacy first, cross-channel measurement platform. And we want to make sure it's built to scale with your business and also enable prediction and action with Google and beyond. So what that means is that we want deeper and broader integrations with Google Ads, Google Cloud, Google Marketing Platform, GMP, and other partners like Salesforce. And yes, and now we're on cross-platform analytics. So here we are with a vast majority of decision makers who are looking at cross-platform analytics as critical or very important. And over half of them have the analytics tools needed to address that. So what that means in GA4, we're looking at that as well. So I think a highlight of GA4 is that they're integrating web and app. So we want a unified, deduplicated data access point across devices and platforms. So this means in GA4, you'll see the ability to measure customer journeys. So it's that focus on the user there. that everyone was mentioning before. So focus on the customer journey, and that's going to span devices and also platforms. So you'll get a fuller picture of how your users are interacting with your content on your site. And that's going to be based both on Google's data and a more flexible and also faster performing event collection and data model. So for example, if you enable a user ID, excuse me, analytics can measure the journey that includes a visit to the mobile website and a conversion in your mobile app. So it can help you answer questions like if customers are starting on your app or on the web, and which ones are more valuable from a lifetime value perspective. Next slide here. Yep, so privacy, this is pretty huge. And so, a majority of executives say it's really big as well. I think what you can expect to see in GA4 are new regulatory compliance and data measurement tools, such as more granular privacy controls for user level data. There's going to be better signed in user insights. We talked about that cookieless world. It's coming, and it'll be less sweet without all those cookies. So that's my dad joke for today. So you'll have cookieless measurement innovation there. And then an example I like is that you'll be able to toggle your advertiser settings depending on the regulation or the kind of legal guidance in your area or in your state if you're in California for CCPA. And I think the final slide here is machine learning. All right, this is kind of my favorite one, even though machine learning is a little bit of a buzzword here, but 81% of executives, marketing leaders say that they need to be able to generate insights using machine learning, and under half say that their current efforts are effective. So here's where GA4, I think, shines. So what you can expect to see here is the power of Google's machine learning behind the data. And so it'll surface key insights on user behavior. Using machine learning, there's a lot of automation in GA4, real-time reporting. So before there was like a 4-hour lag, and they're doing a lot of work on the back end and a lot of flows to make sure that you're able to process more data faster. And so you'll see more real-time reporting there. You'll get insights surfaced automatically, and it's going to surface really cool stuff like anomalies in data, unexpected behaviors, recommended features, recommended actions. And what I think is really interesting, and this is kind of nascent, but the ability to ask questions about your data in natural language, which I think is really cool. So hopefully this will allow you guys to spend more time on analyzing your data rather than wrangling it or cleaning it. And you can automate some of the monitoring or kind of the typical areas where you're not analyzing. So yeah, the example question I have that you might be able to ask GA4 is, on what day this year did I have the highest number of users visit my website? And you'll be able to ask that in natural language. So that is what I have for the future of analytics and also how it relates to GA4.
Great. Well, thank you, Nick, for that. And it's always nice to hear Google's perspective, since you're the ones that, I guess it's Google's world, we're just living in it. So I appreciate you taking the time to shed some light there.
Yep, I'm living in it too. Here we are. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So a few takeaways just to kind of wrap up as we get towards the Q&A section and talk about a few other things. One is launch GA4, but keep using universal analytics. Every company, and especially if you're a large organization, you might have a specific timeline that you're looking to implement this. It is a big change. There's a lot of things to consider, and so you can look in your organization, and as you are rolling it out, make sure to launch both concurrently, and you don't want to lose any of that historical data or reporting. Number two is those engagement metrics. This is arguably the biggest change for those of us that have just been living in GA for the last decade or more. There's some big changes, but I think a lot of improvements, especially with bounce rate. It was sort of a either all or nothing, and I think that the new engagement rate helps give a little nuance there. Next is the new tools added. So there's some of the audience segmentation you can do to really dive deep. And then like Nick was talking about, being able to ask questions of GA and really get an understanding of where conversions are coming from. And then last is the machine learning. So much of this is driven in the background. Liam talked about 500 different events getting set up, scroll events, people looking at images, things like that. So Google is setting those up automatically. They have a huge, obviously tons of resource and tons of data to sift through to make sure that everything is relevant and accurate. And so that's a pretty exciting change that we're going to be looking forward to, improving and helping guide our campaigns moving forward. So before we dive into Q&A, just a little bit about next step. If any of this was intriguing to you, or if you've never worked with us before, or if you just have some questions about GA4 or anything else, we'd be happy to answer them for you. You can reach out to us at sales@CLX Media. We also have a Schedule Genie on our website. You can book a time. And then we also have a few blog posts that we put out over the last few weeks that dive a little bit deeper, especially into the setup and some of the things to watch out for. So if you want to take a look at those are on our website in the blog section. And so now, just right before Q&A, I want to give you a little preview of where we're going. So we're going to talk, March 10th is our next webinar. We're going to be talking about spring. I can't believe that it's already spring. The last year is like, I don't know. It's a cliche to say that the last year flew by, but it really did. And so we're going to be covering spring ad performance across hundreds of different communities, ad spend recommendations, and then some of the different spring ad message and offer ideas. And so now I'm actually going to launch a poll about maybe what you would want to see for the next webinar series that we do. So I'm going to go ahead and launch, I think it's poll number 3. There we go. So poll number 3. So we get a lot of ideas for what we want to talk about from you. And so if you take a minute to fill out this poll, it should pop up on your screen. That'd be really helpful for us. We want to make sure that you're getting good value from these webinars. And so, we can talk about Facebook, lease up strategies. I know that there's, depending on your market, leasing up can be a little bit of a challenge right now. And so what you can do to kind of stand out and really make sure you get stabilized. YouTube is always a big one, especially now. So yeah, there's a lot of ways we can go with this. All right. And then we're going to do one more poll before we go and jump into the Q&A. And it's really just helps us understand, what you liked or didn't like about this webinar, but really, I guess giving us a recommendation. Was this helpful for you? Hopefully it was. And if you didn't like it, feel free to say that as well. That's fine. And we won't get our feelings too hurt. And while we're letting that poll run, why don't we go through a couple of questions? So one of the first questions that came in was, should we be running Universal Analytics in addition to GA for the time being, or is the intent that GA4 will eventually replace any need for Universal Analytics? And so I'll go ahead and answer that one. GA4 is where Google is headed. Right now, we're sort of in this in-between section where we kind of need both, because we don't have all the reporting capabilities we need for GA4 to do our jobs and to help you understand what your campaigns are doing. And so yes, eventually Universal Analytics will disappear, but for right now we want to make sure we have both set up. And then this is a question, and Liam, I hope you can answer this one, is, so say you set up GA4, is it possible to go back and deploy Universal Analytics once you set GA4 up, or once GA4 is set up, has that ship sailed, and is it possible to redeploy UA on your website?
Yes, I can answer that one. So yes, it is possible to go back and set up a new Universal Analytics account. So it will be set up as its own account outside of your GA4 one, but you're able to go ahead and link those two so that you have the same capability as if you did set them up at the same time. So yeah, it is possible to go ahead and you go through the same process. You just go back into advanced options, then go ahead, set that up.
Great. And then another question that came through, what's the difference between an event versus a goal?
I can go ahead and tackle that one as well. So events always ran in the background of Universal Analytics, and they were things that we manually set up. But in GA4, with machine learning, making some events for us, they brought it to the foreground. And events are maybe softer than a goal, which is something that we actually turned on and created. And in GA4, goals are now known as conversions. And it's kind of the same concept where events are still there, but they're a little bit softer than the goals and conversions, which are things we actually turn on. Maybe it's something such as an actual contact, something that's more of a hard lead. So you'll have those events in the background, and a conversion is always an event, but not every event is a conversion, if that makes sense. But yeah, they're now more in the foreground of GA4.
Gotcha. Another question is, will GA goal setup with GA4 still remain dependent upon the use of Google Tag Manager containers and triggers, and developers developing code for some of the unique conversions that we're trying to do, or how does that change with GA4?
With GA4, we're still going to be using Google Tag Manager, just partially because we still want that control to understand that our goals are exactly how we set them up. In addition, we do have things in our containers that help with post view conversions and things like that for our display campaigns. So there are some metrics that make us use the Google Tag Manager container. So we'll still be deploying those and using those, but in addition, we will have those extra events that are set up by machine learning.
Great. And Colin, here's one for you, I think. It says, what are the key metrics that we should look at? I know we kind of did a quick breeze through them, but if you're going to distill it down from the 4 metrics that we talked about, what's the one thing to really hone in on with these new, I guess, metrics to look at?
I think they're really good when they're paired together. So one thing I like to look at is engaged session per user, and also look at engagement rate for this from the same channel. So you could think of, engaged session per user at 1 would be really high, but let's say the engagement rate is only 50%. So that's telling you a lot between those 2 metrics. It's telling you the users that are engaged are coming back to the website, but only 50% are engaged. So the traffic you're driving to the website has kind of an audience that might not be exactly what you're trying to send to the website. I mean, also that's the 4 new metrics are great, but also conversion rates. I mean, that is really the way to go. And the new GA4 with setting up, these machine learning events is really going to help too.
Yeah. One other question that came in says, I was told by Google support to not have both codes on the site because it can mix up your data. Is this not true? Anyone want to take that one?
I can go ahead and take that one. So that's changed a bit here and there. So when I was first looking into GA4, there was a specific way to set it up where you actually had the GA4 part of the code to your Universal Analytics one. And I think that created some confusion. So now they've made it so with being able to link your Universal Analytics account and your GA4 account, there isn't the need for extra code to add to your website. So by linking the data, it will pull the data from your Universal Analytics account already and piggyback off that to start the data stream within your GA4 account. So that right now is the best practice. And that was a change that came out probably about a month and a half ago now.
Okay. And then I think the last question that we'll answer is, should we set up all of our properties that use Universal Analytics right now with GA4 ASAP, or should we wait until ? And so really it depends on your business objectives and your goals. Like I said before, if you're a part of a larger organization, that's a bigger ship that it's a little bit more challenging to move. And so there is probably going to be, I'm sure, a phased rollout of getting GA4 live. If you're, in a smaller organization, or, just have 1 or 2 accounts, something like that, go ahead and get it connected, just because you can start at least looking at the data. You can't really do much with it yet. You can obviously look at it in the account. You can't pull it out and do some of the larger reporting things at scale yet. But you feel free to set it up and at least have the data collecting. Just be sure to not remove your Universal Analytics data or ID, because that has a lot of downstream effects. All right, so I think that's it. So I just want to say thank you again to all of our panelists for joining, Colin, Liam, and Nick. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, and thank you to everyone that was watching. I know that there's been a lot of webinars happening over the last few months, and I think with the lack of conferences, people are turning to virtual ones. So thank you for joining us today. So with that, I think we are going to take off, and hope everyone has a fantastic day, and we'll hopefully see you back for the March 10th webinar on spring, what to expect from this leasing season. And then again, we'll be sending recording and some follow-up emails out. So if you want to go back and look and look at some of the cool metrics and things that Liam, Colin, and Nick spoke about, you can go ahead and do that. So thank you again, and we will see you all hopefully on March 10th. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome job, team. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.